Well, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has accused East African forces deployed to fight rebels in his country of working with the enemy. Felix Tshisekedi made the remarks during a visit to Botswana earlier this week, where he welcomed the planned deployment of Southern African forces as a replacement. The DRC president did not specify how the East African forces are allegedly working with the rebels, but said that his government has had to reevaluate its operations in the East. Tshisekedi said he's also concerned over Kenya's decision to appoint a replacement commander for the regional forces without consulting authorities in Kinshasa. This came after the commander of the East African forces, Kenyan General Jeff Nyaga, abruptly quit the DRC mission at the end of April. Well, Daniel Kija is in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and joins us live now. Daniel, reports indicate that Tanzania could contribute troops to the SADC force into the DRC. What more can you tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Hannah, for having me. Indeed, there was an important meeting on the 8th of May of the Troika members of SADC. Obviously, they have agreed to send troops, and now there's this Force Intervention Brigade, which consists of troops from Tanzania, South Africa, and Malawi, that is a special component of the MONUSCO forces. Now, obviously, the meeting did not give exact numbers of troops to be sent by Tanzania or its counterparts, or the timeline for the deployment, but it's clear that Tanzania would indeed send forces. But it's also important to remind viewers that troops from the three SADC countries, like South Africa, Tanzania, and Malawi, have already been operating in Eastern DRC since 2013, and of course the UN peacekeeping force at MONUSCO. Now, this deployment will add again onto the East African Regional Military Force that draws troops from Kenya, Kenya, Uganda, and South Sudan. So it is not very clear how many troops will go from Tanzania, but we know that even the East African force, as much as it has tried to stabilize some parts of Eastern Congo, it has not been able to truly wipe out the insurgency.
Well, Daniel, should Tanzania deploy troops into the DRC, what would their mandate and role be?
Well, like I mentioned, Tanzania has had a strong presence on the African continent when it comes to peacekeeping and deploying forces, especially into the Congo since 2013. And this Force Intervention Brigade now, it's supposed to have a more robust mandate, which would allow it to even sort of mount offensive operations against the over 100 armed troops that are making, lives of Congolese citizens, unsafe and creating the instability in this region. Now, the full rules of engagement of this force are not very clear yet, but it will definitely, what we know is that it could have more offensive power as combined to a peacekeeping force like the MONUSCO. And in fact, Tanzania has lost more than 6 peacekeeping officers of soldiers since they've been keeping peace and sending troops into the Congo. So as it stands, it seems like they're looking to create a more aggressive approach and against the insurgency. Now, how all these forces would play out, including the Tanzanian force that might be going, the East African Army, the SADC forces as well, how they'll all interplay to work together is still, a big issue of concern, because, as you said, there are issues of certain members of the East African community complaining that they're working with the rebels. So it's a wait and see to see exactly how these troops will operate within this very tense and unstable environment.
And also a very complicated issue. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Daniel. Daniel Kija was speaking to us from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Well, for more analysis on that story, let's bring in David Otto Endele. He is the Director on Security for Horn of Africa Institute for Peace and Security, and he's joining us from London. Thank you so much for joining us, David. David, the DRC is looking to SADC now for stability in the East. What are your thoughts on this latest development?
I think there has to be some clear rules of engagement. I think, the reason why President Tshisekedi of DRC Congo made that statement, saying that the rebels are working with the East African Community peacekeeping force, I think it's because, DRC Congo has increasingly asked, for these peacekeeping missions to be rather offensive and go for the rebels. But of course, the whole mandate, for these forces was to maintain peace in the eastern region of Goma, rather than to engage directly with the rebel group. So I think there is some level of misunderstanding, or perhaps lack of coordination between what the DRC Congo wants the peacekeeping force mission to be doing and what they are actually doing. Now, the question is, what will be the rules of engagement if we then have SADC forces, deployed to that region? Will they want to engage directly, with some of the rebel groups, including M23? I don't know, but of course, these forces have experience in Mozambique, so perhaps, the Congolese president is looking at what they did with the Machibabus, that's ISIS faction in Mozambique, and perhaps thinking that this might be the same kind of operation that would happen in DRC Congo. We don't know yet. It's just to watch and see.
So, David, that was actually going to be my next question to you, and if you could give us some more detail on that. What would you say have been the challenges for EAC forces in the east of the DRC, and what do you think SADC forces would do there differently?
I think the first challenge for every force that is deployed to a region is how to work with the host nation. And, the host nation is always in the front, of every operation. And perhaps there might be, in terms of, objectives, differential objective. I mean, again, as I mentioned, the East African Community Forces might have rules of engagement to be peacekeeping mission, to create a buffer zone, to protect the local population against these rebel groups. But what perhaps, the Congolese, forces would want is for them to go, directly and engage with the rebel groups. So these are some of the challenges. And secondly, it's very challenging when you're deployed to a new region which you don't have any idea of. You lack what we call the local knowledge of the operations, and if you don't have the support of the host nation, which is DRC Congo, it's going to be very difficult, for you to have a successful operation. So perhaps I think the biggest problem is the coordination between the host nation and, of course, the East African Community Forces.
Daniel, thank you so much. Always great having your insights.